Hello guys, and welcome back to Speed Dogger and Build and Maris Models F86. Now what I'm doing here is I'm doing a little bit of body work on here to get the tail planes and everything done. I just put a little bit of filler on there. It's still wet, so I'm going to wait for that to cure. And what I'm doing is I'm getting this curve perfect. And if you look, there's barely any on there, but I like to do my filling before I do my glassing, and the reason for that is because I don't like to get thin spots in my fuselage at all. So I will actually fill spots and get them perfect. And you know, as good as the sheeting job looks, it's going to require a little bit of filling in here in these little areas. You don't want to over sand a lot of that. And bringing that in, I would invite you guys to look on other YouTube channels and talk about the glassing thing. And Bob Moore is one of the guys that I've actually looked up to when it comes to the fiberglassing, because his method is absolutely just, it rocks. I mean, there's nothing about it. But the one thing that I will agree with is that guys, you cannot rely on fiberglass to strengthen this. If you get it too thin, you're going to lose a little bit of your integrity as far as the sheeting goes. And it's very important that you take your time and get your sheeting right. And that's why I like to use big sheets when I can. And in curves and stuff like in here, I'll do planking. And I've showed that. And I'm not afraid to use Bondo because, for one, the glass will stick to it and it'll actually absorb it just as much as the wood will. And I've never had an issue with it. And, you know, it's my preference to do it this way. You don't have to do it that way. If you want to go ahead and glass it and fill it, there's nothing wrong with that, but I wouldn't be sanding fiberglass. But let me explain what the thing is, because I'm only using 1 ounce cloth on this when I do glass it, and that'll be here probably in probably about a month, I'm guessing. I've got a lot of work to do yet, and there's a lot of things I'm building into this airplane. So I'm slowing down to go faster. As you can see, she's come a long ways in the last 2 months, but I want to show you this curve and why I do the things I do with it. And that curve is just about perfect on this side. This side needs some work yet, but that's what I'm looking for. Just get that little point in that spot and get that to where that rolls real nice. And it'll look great with the panel lines on it and everything. And 20,000 rivets later, it'll look really nice. And that's what I'm doing. But the details take time to do, and you can't rush through them. And I'm using an 1.5 inch pipe here in order to go in, and I just roll it back in here like so. And as you can see, it knocks that stuff down pretty quickly, just in just a couple swipes. And this is just pretty much just to get that curve just as nice as I possibly can get it. Another thing I'm doing it for, so I can make this line, which I kind of glued it down. That's alright. I'll trace it. I can see it. I can see right through this stuff. It's not very thick. Looks like crap when you put it on. Always does. But once you sand it out and you get it all finished out, it'll prove to be a really nice thing. Now, a lot of guys have told me the back doesn't look right on this. Well, that's because I'm building the Navy version. It's going to be the Fury. So I've decided on that. I like the tail end of it a little bit better. And the tail is just a little bit taller, up to about there. And it gets a spot right there for another little blister. And I decided that I didn't want to build just your standard eyes deal. And another reason I did is because there's no way you can find landing gear, nose gear, without spending a couple $1,000s to get this thing settled out. So I am going to paint this in fact, in a navy paint scheme, but in order to do that, I need to make it look good, and that means we're building a tail hook. So, and it will come down with a servo. So it's going to be something else I'm going to do, and it's just very minor modifications. The earlier models of the deal is still an F86, but as far as the F3 Fury goes, just a slight difference in the nose. It only had 2 gun ports in it, and later models had a totally different canopy, which is kind of something I'm very seriously thinking about, but haven't made up my mind yet. And there's a lot of versions of the F86, but I want to be a little bit different than what everybody else is doing. I don't want a silver airplane. I want a paint job. And some of the paint jobs I've seen for the Fury is amazing. The difference is that the wings folded on the Fury. The tail was just a little bit different, and I can still cut that off and make that work. And I'm messing with it. As you can see, I'm still playing with ideas with this. But this right here, in this area, is looking pretty damn close. It still had this. I can cut this back and get even more of a tail pod on this than what is on, but I've extended it a 1/2 inch. Now, if I wanted to go back with this, it would be an A model if I did go and decide to go. And I'm still playing with ideas, guys. There's a lot of different influences that go in here, but the difference on the landing gear is on the Fury. It was just a little bit longer to get a rake on it, but it had that double fork on there for the trailing gear on the front nose wheel, and it had a little bit smaller wheel. And that, to me, kind of turned on some light switches. So I'm kind of playing with ideas. It may wind up being the F86 after all, but I'm playing with some other ideas and different paint jobs. I just don't want to be the same run-of-the-mill guy out there. But we got a long ways to go before we even designate this as anything, because we got a shitload of sheeting to do. There's a lot of work to go. We're not even scratching this thing yet, fellas. This is 2 months every day, 8 to 10 hours a day, and that's just getting parts made, fit, and done. And then little modifications I decided at the last minute, like the speed brakes, which work. And there's little things that I'm doing that are just going to be really there's a lot of things that are going on in here. But that's the fun part about building these airplanes. Once you get a kit like this, it's a short kit, which means that you're not getting everything. This kit, I bought every option available for it. And I am getting the canopy, another canopy, and the fiberglass frame for it, just because it's going to be a time saver for me, and it's going to look great. And so I think one of the big things is getting in here and making some modifications and building this jet the way you want it done it's just going to be a real fun thing to do for me. So I'm enjoying this build. I'm loving doing these videos and everything else. And I wanted to bring up a couple questions and answers to a few guys here too. I'm getting a lot of PMs, and you know what? I encourage that, and I will answer anybody and any questions anybody has about any of the techniques or anything given that I do, because I don't build like everybody else does, and I don't claim to be one of the best builders in the world. It's like I said, I built this thing in a basement to prove that you don't need a great big shop to follow a dream, and a shop helps, believe me, and I got one being built. But I think one of the big things is getting inspired to say, well, I got some extra room, I've got a garage, I've got this, I've got that, I wish I had the space. Well, you do. I put this together, I don't. But, I think one of the big things is that I sit here and I just hack wood and have a great time doing it. And it's like I said, I've got this side done. I've still got all that to turn around and get back in there. Still got another speed brake and a lot of stuff done. I've got some wiring done. I've got a lot of little things going on in here. But I don't have a lot of it done yet. I've got a lot of ordering to do. And we do have kind of a wood shortage around this area. And it's always been a complaint about mine because there's not very many builders around anymore. And, you know, if you guys start to see what you can have and you can actually enjoy and build something like this and make something your own like I'm doing, then you're going to be looking at tons and tons and tons of different options. And there's so many things, and there's so many builders all over the world. But unfortunately in Seattle, Washington, they've just kind of fallen through the cracks. And a lot of it is because we don't have a lot of places to fly anymore. And a lot of the old timers are unfortunately passing on and leaving us kind of to the point where they're retiring. And the good hobby shops that did carry actual lumber yards for balsa and building supplies, they're just gone. And you go to the normal chains and the franchises, and they carry a couple sheets. And I mean, I went in and bought 10 sheets. Came in and bought what they did have left that I rejected last time, and I bought them, and I'll use them for interior parts or whatever and little things I need. But I can't even get enough to do this, so I'm forced to go online, and then, you know, the money that I spend is going again out of the state, which in this state, who cares? But, you know, it's just one of those deals that our local hobby shops suck. And they just don't get what we're doing here. They say, oh, you're building an airplane. Cool. Well, they haven't seen this. And if you guys are watching, shame on you. You should be knowing that there's people out here that still give a shit about this hobby and are actually still doing it and trying to get things done and keeping it real here, because ARPs suck. You know, they're not anything to me. I mean, they're just overpriced garbage in most cases, and I don't mean that meanly to a lot of the manufacturers, but they're all the same. There's no personality in them, and there's no skill in screwing landing gear on something or putting a propeller on it, a couple screws and going out to fly in the field. It's nothing after you put 1,000 hours into something. It's a night and day difference. This will outfly any ARF out there, guaranteed. And it's just one of these deals. All my planes I built, whether it be a Dave Platt, Zeroli, good God, I've done lots and lots and lots of top flights. Anything you build yourself is going to be better, guys. So get out there and get inspired. Get in the shop. Start throwing some wood around. Get the fingers dirty. Cut yourself. Do something. It's all worth it in the end, fellas. See you in the funny papers.